Skybird, this is Dropkick with a red dash alpha message in 2 parts. Break, break.
This tool is pretty much like a pipe cutter, but it's designed to hold a laser diode. What I've tested is these will work with 5.6 millimeter diodes as well as 9 millimeter diodes, and even the larger packages, but nothing smaller. A 3.8 millimeter diode is too small. I'm not sure if they make another cutting bit to accommodate for smaller diodes, but the 3.8 millimeter are kind of coming up now, where you're finding them in 445 nanometer blues and some reds. Now, the purpose of this tool is to remove the can, pretty much as the title of the tool would give you the idea of. This is a laser diode of 9 millimeter. It's an 808 nanometer diode. Now, in a lot of DPSS applications where one would want to try to pump green and the YV04 crystals, KTP, YAG, all that good stuff, LBO, BBO, like all these different crystals out there. Anyways, just to cut that short, it's some instances you want to remove the can because there's no optics used after the diode in between the pump medium and the diode itself. Now, in this case, and a lot of, if you've taken apart cheap green pointers that are made in China, a lot of their diodes are open can 808 diodes, and the reason is you can place the diode straight up against the back of the crystal and pump it directly, whereas more quality manufacturers have an assortment of optics they'll put in between where the diode doesn't have to be decanned. I've heard from razor blades to hacksaws to Dremels. I mean, all of that is just going to damage your diode. If you've got an expensive diode and say you've got a crack window on the front, you see that little glimmer coming off, that's your window. If that window cracks or gets burnt, or you have some sort of debris that's landed on there while the laser was running, it will pretty much bond that debris straight onto the glass from heat. I don't know if 3B lasers are capable of that, but I know class 4 they're able to do it, if not melt a hole through the glass. So regardless of what injury your diode has sustained, you want to take that can off. You're going to need a tool like this to do it. And the purpose is because you want a clean cut. You don't want jagged edges. You don't want filings falling into it. You don't want to vibrate the hell out of the diode. Shock is never good for electronics. It just cuts down your exposure time where the diode is open to the air. If you want to get it sealed up fast into a module, you don't want dust, you don't want anything getting onto the die itself. These cans and the windows are put here for a reason, and part of it is even with 405 nanometer and 445s, apparently the blues are hygroscopic and they take up a lot of moisture. You don't want to expose your diode to the elements. So if you've already got a broken diode, a burnt window, you bag it up and either find somebody with this tool or you pick one up for yourself. They're about $170 the last time I checked. This one I picked up used a couple of years ago for about $75, which was a score because they're not that common. You don't find these too often. Now, the first thing I want to point out is when you want to cut the can off a diode, first of all, you got to make sure you're set up. You got to make sure you're set up so you can pinch the diode. If you can see, there's 2 extra holes here. You can move these rails down, and that will accommodate a larger diode. I can't remember the type of package I'm thinking of, but there are larger diodes than 9 millimeter. So anyways, one of the key points you want to remember is when you're opening the diode up, you don't want to hold it in a position where you're going to be getting exposure of little filings and such that are coming off the can, because there are small filings. You don't want those getting into the diode itself, onto the bonding wires, causing a short, stuff like that. So this is just a quick demonstration, more or less. I like to do mine upside down like this. That way, as it cuts through, any filings, once you pierce the inner wall of this can, they will fall to the bottom. If you hold this sideways, you got a good chance that as you're rotating it, you're going to have filings landing on your die, and again, you don't want that. You don't want it getting on the bonding wires. You don't want any debris getting inside your diode. So my way of doing this is I hold it with the can facing down and the legs of the diode facing up, and use this to adjust, because you don't want to go all the way through. You want to leave this about the thickness of the wall of the can itself. So you adjust that. You can always loosen it off as you go, but you don't want to have it too loose and then your blade goes down and snips a bonding wire or something like that. So I'll just go ahead here, and it's pretty simple stuff. It's like using a pipe cutter. You want to go, half turns like this, back and forth, and then rotate over and continue on. You don't want to go in a continual circle, because that will actually take forever if you keep, turning in the same direction. I find the fastest cut comes from going back and forth. So I'll just keep going on this one here. And I can feel it's getting loose, so that means this little stopper here has to take some of the tension off that, loosen that back off a bit. With the 9mm diodes, I find that these cut right through them, no problem. 5.6mm, they seem to have a thicker wall, or maybe just the shape of it. I'm not sure what the exact differences are, but they are harder to cut through. So you want to slowly adjust and go. And it's getting really loose now, so I know the can's been broken, but it hasn't fallen away yet. You can see the can is still attached. I don't think it's going to go any further, so gently take that out. Now again, you don't want to be tipping this into a direction where any filings are going to fall onto the exposed die. So you want to be really careful. Get your nail in there, make sure you're not touching nothing, and it breaks right loose. And that's it. There's your can. Very, very clean cut. It comes off with very, I can't think of doing this with a Dremel. I think you'd destroy the diode. I can't set the focus on my camera here, so I can't really give you a close-up while I'm filming.